All right, for this explainer, we are diving into a historical cold case that's been a real head-scratcher for, about 2,500 years. It's a mystery right out of the book of Daniel, all about a king who, seems to have just vanished from the pages of history.
So the big question is, who exactly was Darius the Mede? The Bible tells us he's the king who took down the mighty Babylonian Empire. But when historians go looking for him in any other record, poof, he's a ghost.
And here's the heart of the problem. The book of Daniel is crystal clear. Darius the Mede conquered Babylon. But you look anywhere else, cuneiform tablets, Greek historians, you name it, and he's just not there. It's like the main character in a massive historical drama just decided not to show up for the history books.
Now, over the years, a few different theories have popped up. You can think of it like a historical police lineup. We're going to bring in the usual suspects, take a hard look at each one, and see if the evidence actually stacks up.
First up in our lineup, Astyages. He was the last king of the Medes and, this is a key detail, he was the grandfather of the legendary Cyrus the Great. The theory goes that Cyrus, after conquering Babylon, kind of let his grandpa take a victory lap and rule the city for a bit. It's a nice family story, but is it true?
On the one hand, you can see why the idea is appealing, right? A powerful conqueror honoring his grandfather. The problem is, there is literally zero evidence to back this up. Not a single mention in any chronicle we've ever found. It's completely speculation.
So yeah, with absolutely nothing to go on, we can safely say Astyages is not our guy. Case dismissed.
Okay, suspect number 2, Cambyses II. This is Cyrus the Great's son and heir. Now this one seems a little more promising because we actually have records that show Cyrus put his son in charge of Babylon for a time. So maybe this is him?
But once you put the profiles side by side, the whole theory just falls apart. First, Daniel says Darius was about 62 years old. Cambyses? Way too young. But even more telling is the attitude. Darius clearly respected and cared for the prophet Daniel. Cambyses, on the other hand, was known to be hostile toward the Jews. The personalities don't match up at all.
So, wrong age, wrong attitude. The evidence just doesn't fit. Cambyses is definitely not Darius the Mede. Another one bites the dust.
All right, our last traditional suspect is a guy named Gubaru. And for a long time, this was a really popular theory. The idea was that Darius was this Gubaru, a governor who served in Babylon after the Persian conquest. But this one unravels pretty quickly too. For starters, it seems to be a case of mistaken identity between two different Gubarus. Plus, the cuneiform tablets are clear. Cyrus and his son were the rulers. There's just no room for some other guy to be king. And then there's the fact that Daniel himself was about to be promoted to a top spot, which makes zero sense if Gubaru was already in that job.
You add it all up, and the Gubaru theory just has way too many holes. So, we've got to dismiss our final suspect.
So, where does that leave us? We've gone through the whole lineup of the usual suspects, and we've come up completely empty-handed. Well, this is where the investigation takes a really fascinating turn.
Because once you've ruled out every other possibility, once you've shown that none of the other candidates could possibly be the guy,
You start to realize that maybe, just maybe, the answer was right there in front of us the entire time.
And here it is. The most compelling solution to this whole mystery is that Darius the Mede wasn't a separate person at all. It was another name, a title really, for Cyrus the Great himself. Okay, I know what you're thinking. How do we know that? Well, this isn't just a random guess. The evidence is actually woven through the text, the history, and even ancient prophecies. Let's connect the dots. The first clue, and it's a big one, is right there in the Bible. A key verse, Daniel 6:28, is often translated as Daniel prospering in the reign of Darius and Cyrus. But the original Hebrew word can and probably should be translated as even. So it reads, in the reign of Darius, even in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. See? It's not talking about two different kings. It's clarifying that they're the same person. And a ruler having more than one title isn't weird at all. I mean, think about British history. You have James VI of Scotland. When he also becomes King of England, he gets a new, higher title, James I. It's one guy, two different titles depending on the context.
This looks like the exact same kind of thing.
So that begs the question, why the specific title, the Mede? Well, this is where it gets really cool. The prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah had predicted centuries earlier that the Medes specifically would be the ones to take down Babylon. Cyrus's mother was a Median princess, and his army was a Medo-Persian alliance. By taking Babylon under the title Darius the Mede, he was stepping directly into a prophesied role.
But there's one last piece to this puzzle, and it's a very human one. It's all about the relationship between this king and the prophet Daniel.
Decades before Cyrus was even born, the prophet Isaiah did something incredible. He named him. He called out Cyrus by name and said he would be God's shepherd. Now Daniel, as a top scholar, would have known this prophecy inside and out. Can you imagine? He would have been watching and waiting his whole life for a conqueror named Cyrus to appear.
And their behavior after the conquest screams that they already knew each other. Think about it. Cyrus doesn't execute Daniel, a top guy from the old government. He immediately promotes him. When Daniel gets thrown into the lion's den, the king is genuinely heartbroken. That's not how you act with some bureaucrat you just met. That's how you act when your trusted friend is in danger.
So, the 2,500-year-old mystery of Darius the Mede seems to be solved, not by finding some lost king, but by realizing we were looking at a famous one who just went by another name. And that leaves you with a pretty fascinating thought: who else from history might be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to figure out who they really are?